This is Healing with Haley, episode 22, Fathers. Welcome to the podcast where it's all about healing, self-improvement, our brains, and living your dream life. My name is Haley Kirk, and I'm a life coach, mom, and entrepreneur here to show you how to be the hero of your story. What is up, you guys? It is a day after Father's Day, and I thought it would just be the best idea for a podcast. I gotta make things simple, guys. Gotta make things simple. Gotta bust these things out. So, it was such a great day. I hope you guys had a lovely Father's Day. Regardless of the type of relationship that you might have with your father, or if it's, maybe your father's deceased, I really believe we still have relationships with our fathers, our caregivers, really, post-mortem, right? Like, even though they're gone, we can still have that relationship with them. And so I'm going to talk a lot about that, but I want to dive in to my dad. And I want to talk to you guys a lot about my dad, and it's not to be boastful or insensitive. It's to cherish what I have. And I really am just so grateful, and I have to show him off a little bit because he's just an amazing human being. So my dad, I've always been a daddy's girl, and some of my favorite memories of him were in my childhood. I was a member of the Mormon church, and what they did, it was so cool. I honestly love this, is they would have young women's programs where they would, teach women really great values, honestly, like faith, integrity, virtue, knowledge, choice, accountability, good works. I think those are just such honorable, great values to have as a society at large, and especially for women. And my dad, in the program, there was an event, and the event was centered on like daddy-daughter relationships, and the dads were assigned a task to talk about their daughter in relation to a flower. And it was such a sweet evening. Like, it was so sweet, all the things that the dads said. And a lot of the dads picked kind of the typical beautiful flowers, right? Like tulips, roses, daisies. And my dad, he picked a sunflower. And I've asked him to this day for this poem that he wrote, but it doesn't matter. I just remember feeling so special. Like, I felt so special. It was like so poetic. It was so well thought out. My dad's he's such a love bug, and he's a romantic, and I love it. And he was like, he had this poem. It was like, it had rhyme. It was so well done. And he talked about the different aspects of a sunflower. And he's like, sunflowers are the strongest flowers physically. Like, they're physically the strongest flower. They have deep roots. And he talked about my depth. He talked about my strength. He talked about how utilitarian a sunflower is. There's lots of uses for sunflowers, and oils and seeds and all these things. And then he said, this one makes me get so teary-eyed, but he said, the sunflower faces the sun. And the sun, he made a relation to like the Son of God, Christ, and how Christ-like I am, and how I'm very peaceful. He said that like the moment I was born and came to that home, I was a peacemaker. Like, he knew that about me, and that was my strength, is I desire peace. And that's true to this day. I really hate contention, and I try really hard to continue peaceful relationships and energy. And I just remember feeling so loved and so seen. And my dad has always done that for me. And I remember so many memories with my dad. Like, he was my soccer coach. He would play sports with my brother and me, and like every day it felt like we'd play volleyball, tennis, soccer, basketball, hockey, everything and anything you could think of. And it's just so fun. And he would read books to us, like he would do bedtime stories. Like he was just such an intentional father. And he would do like faith in God. That was like a kind of 8 through 12 years of age program where you would read scriptures, you try to memorize them, and he worked on that with me. And he worked on my young women's program, which was like all those virtues I talked about earlier. You would do scriptural things, physical things, acts of service, and then you would pass off one of the virtues. And anyway, so I just thought it was so cool how much my dad invested lots of time and energy into me. There were so many multiple sweet moments. Like I remember one memory I have is I wanted to train for soccer because soccer was coming up for high school. And I wanted to do well for the audition, so I wanted to run. And my dad, he was just so nervous because we lived in Vegas. And so what he would do is he would drive his car like right next to me to make sure I was okay. Like I remember this one truck pulled up behind him and was like, "Hey, are you okay? Like that car's following you." And I was like, yeah, it's my dad. And they're like, "Oh, okay, good." So such fond memories. And Sunday nights were always board game nights, especially Risk. Risk was our go-to, and we would, because you just don't know how long Risk is going to last, and we would just be up till like 2, 3 in the morning, and my dad had to wake up early for work, but he didn't care, and he wanted to keep playing. It's just so fun. I love how he instilled this like competitive, search for knowledge and truth and question and be inquisitive and loving. He instilled the favorite attributes about myself and about him in me. And I really have a deep appreciation for my dad. And recently I was going through a really life-changing experience, kind of traumatic, and I was telling my dad about it, and he was like, "Haley, no matter what you do, like you could commit some heinous crime and I would show up to the court case. That's how much I love you. Like I might not agree with all your decisions, but I will love you. I will be there. I will show up for you." And it was just this godlike love, like unconditional love. And it's overwhelming. It's freeing. It's everything a daughter would want to hear, right? Like you're saying, if I make a big mistake, you're going to still be there for me. Like, wow. And I just felt this zero judgment, this absolute, pure, unconditional love for my dad. And that memory, I remember it was in my kitchen, and he was cooking me soup, chicken noodle soup, on my son's 1-year birthday. And he came to visit from either Vegas or California because he's recently moved. But it's one of those moments, I call these moments like Patronus moments. I'm a huge Harry Potter nerd, if you guys didn't know this about me. I love, love, love Harry Potter, always have. And a Patronus in the 3rd book, Prisoner of Azkaban of Harry Potter, these creatures, they're called Dementors, and what they do is they suck the lives out of people, and their purpose is to guard the prisoners of Azkaban, right? And they take all the joy out of life. And so they're intense creatures, but how you defend yourself from a Dementor is you produce a Patronus, and a Patronus is conjured by thinking of a truly happy memory, like a joyous, beautiful memory. And it has to be really strong. And I think of those moments a lot. One of those moments is the birth of my son, of course. And that was another one. Like, I have so many Patronus memories with my dad. I have plenty. I have so many. I really cherish. I've always been a daddy's girl, and I've always had such lovely memories of him. Was he perfect? No. Did he hurt me? Yes. But and even that, I can question that. Like, did he hurt me? Well, no. Like, especially if you consider what people are thinking and believing at the time that they, quote unquote, hurt you, it's amazing what you can find out. And I could go down a rabbit hole on that. But if you are struggling with a relationship with your father, I have some guidelines or some homework you might want to consider. My favorite thing to think about is this quote, and it goes, "The greatest work we can do is to love what created us." Oh, that is such a good line, because I believe love heals all. Love conquers all. I really, really believe that. And Byron Katie, she is the author of amazing books: A Mind at Home with Itself, Loving What Is, I Need Your Love, Is That True? And she created The Work, which is essentially a series of questions. It's a worksheet that has 6 questions. And from those 6 questions, you ask yourself 4 questions. Is it true? Can I absolutely know it's true? Who would I be without this thought? How to react when I think this thought? And so I'm going to link some of my favorite podcast episodes that she does, where she works with this woman who believed that her father abandoned her when she was really little. And I love the turnarounds. Her mother left the country. And so it wasn't her father that abandoned her. And she found the love her father had for her. And it's just crazy, these stories we believe about our parents that are preventing us, one, from seeing the truth, which is that our parents do love us, and 2, is we're creating suffering for ourselves by believing these thoughts about our parents. And I'm not justifying, right? We're not condoning any behaviors that were malevolent, right? Or heinous, right? That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that aside from those kinds of things, like, it's crazy how much we compound that pain, right? Because pain is not a choice. Pain is things that happen outside of us, and suffering is a choice. Suffering can end with our thoughts that we're asking ourselves. Here's one of my favorite quotes from Byron Katie that I read recently. And this is in her book, Mind at Home with Itself. And a lot of times, this is a little pretty deep into her work, but she's not telling you what is, right? Or that you have to drop any of your beliefs. She's just inviting you to it and asking you to try it on and see if it's true. So here's her book, A Mind at Home with Itself, is kind of like a question and answer, kind of like Eckhart Tolle's book. I think it's A New Earth. It's the question and answer format. So the question is, what about war, rape, poverty, and child abuse? Are you condoning them? Her answer is this: how can I condone them? I'm not crazy. I simply notice that if I believe they shouldn't exist, when they do exist, I suffer. Can I just end the war in me? Can I stop raping myself and others with my abusive thoughts? If not, I'm continuing in myself the very thing I want to end in the world. Sanity doesn't suffer. ever. Can you eliminate war everywhere on earth? Through inquiry, you can begin to eliminate it for one human being, you. This is the beginning of the end of war in the world. If life upsets you, good. Judge the war makers on paper, inquire, turn it around. Do you really want to know the truth? All suffering begins and ends with you. And so I shared this actually. So my dad and my middle younger brother, we started a book club, and I'm super excited about it. We're reading Crime and Punishment. And I articulated this in the book club yesterday because there's pain, right? The circumstances that happen outside of us, poverty. The main character in Crime and Punishment, Raskolnikov, he commits a murder. And I argue that we would all be murderers if we think and believe what Raskolnikov was thinking. And what he was thinking is, I'm a victim. Woe is me. I have so many enemies. And anytime we think we have enemies, that's ego. Ego creates this separation, right? Oh, look at them over there. I am smarter than them. And Raskolnikov is always muttering and judging and hating his landlady. And he feels victimized by her. And that's why I love what Byron Katie says, is that a victim is a very dangerous person. Because there's this buildup of resentment, right? And so ego, my favorite definition of ego is identity with mind. And the mind, if you think about it, 85 to 90% of what the mind thinks is negative and or repetitive. And a lot of it isn't even you. It's a function of the body. And if we just take a moment, even just one of the thoughts that comes to our mind, like, my landlady is mean, as a thought, right? That's a judgment. And you can inquire about it. Okay, so what am I seeing? What's the circumstance? And you do this worksheet with her, and it's amazing. So I'm gonna link the podcast episode where Byron Katie's working with a daughter who's mad at her father for abandoning her, and hopefully this can give you guys a stepping stone or an opportunity to find forgiveness, find peace, find compassion towards your father. If you don't have a relationship with him, a good relationship with him, even if he's passed away, you can still do the work and still find that healing that you're looking for in relation to your father. And yeah, and the reason I'm telling these stories is I know for me, growing up, I had a tainted view of my father through the eyes of my mother, because they, got divorced, and she had all these stories about him that she told them to me because she did, right? I do accept the reality of that, but it did taint my view of my father. And so I believed I had a bad father for many years until I read this book in my psychology class, and it was like a journaling book. So you would read a story from one of his clients, and one of the memories was the daughter was believing that she had a bad father, and she recalled, no, I don't have a bad father. Like, she had this memory of him picking her up from the slide, like as a really young girl. And she was like, no, like, my dad loved me. Like, look, he did these things for me. And I guess that's one of my pushbacks. Like, I remember, I'll never forget this one episode of, it's one of those like ER movies or shows. I think it's called Amsterdam. And the therapist was having a session with one of the main doctors, and she was like, yeah, like, I love my dad, he's a great dad. And he was convincing her, like, no, he was a bad father, he didn't show up for you. And I'm like, I don't understand why in therapy they would break that beautiful belief system down. Like, what? Yes, our parents are imperfect and they hurt us because hurt people, and we're not condoning that action, right? We're just understanding it. We meet the thoughts, the painful thoughts, with compassion and understanding. We don't go to war with ego, we understand ego. And I was just like, why are you decomposing her belief systems about her father being good? And I didn't understand that episode well, and granted, that's probably not a accurate depiction of therapy, but I really believe that it's so much better to see the good, to clear the mind of the judgments, or put them into paper, right? Put the judgments onto paper with inquiry, and ask yourself, like, my dad didn't love me. Is that true? And really sit, and it's a very meditative practice. And so I really am a huge advocate of the work that Byron Katie does. It has given me so much awareness and perspective of the love that was always there, and I was just blind to it because of the things I was thinking and believing. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode. I have a coaching program. I use a lot of Byron Katie techniques as well as some others. So I would love to be your life coach. If you don't already have one, I would love to be your coach. I'd be honored. So I have a coaching program. If you'd like to learn more about it, click the link in the show notes, and I'll see you on the next one.